gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movies and discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and back in the saddle again is one Sean Keenan.
Heidi's confused, so a history of violence is really violent?
And of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and you don't want to know what Vigo did to me in a stairwell.
No, you do not, because one might say it might be violent. That's because today's movie, everybody, is a history of violence, and this is brought to us by the people that support us over at patreon.com/HMP. Every single month we give you fine supporters the chance to vote on what we watch, and this one was kind of a runaway winner, man. It wasn't even like sometimes a lot of the ones are pretty close. It's like, maybe these two were, but no, by a runaway margin here, A History of Violence is our movie this week, and it's thanks to those people. And if you would like to vote and get the pre-show, post-show, and all that kind of good fun stuff, head on over to patreon.com/HMP and join the fun today. Why don't you? So Sean, welcome back, my friend.
Thank you. It's good to be back. I'm glad that the third heat is back on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And just as Sean is always humble as ever, calling himself the third heat. Good job.
Yeah, because you got the primary, the backup, and the third heat. I am the third one. I'm three. How is that not being humble?
I don't know. I'm just trying to bust your chops a little bit.
Hey, you can't be holy if you're not a Trinity.
Oh, come on.
How about that? Thanks for coming back and not leaving us to dry, because I was really with Stallone connections. It's a tough gig you got, my friend, and I'll be honest, I can do it, but boy, would rather have you.
Nothing. You're lucky you missed the Stallone connection on the Japanese animation. I'll just say that.
Holy smokes,
man! When I saw what you guys were doing, I was like, "Oh, thank God, I don't have to do the low connection for that one."
I was so dumb. It's like I suggest this, and like I didn't realize that I was at the same time just digging my own grave. What a ridiculous move.
And I also think we're missing a great opportunity if we don't just ask, just put it out there, Sean. What'd you think of Solo? Because of the three of us, you're the one whose opinion on Solo really matters the most.
Well, I'm going to talk about it more later, but I like it. I don't love it. And, the people who have problems with it that aren't insane, they're valid. The points are valid with it. I think it is a little paint by numbers, but I still like it anyway. I think that the things that recommend it far outweigh the problems that I had with it.
Cool.
I think I tend to agree with that.
And I think we can all agree that the best thing about the Solo movie was Jon Favreau's CGI character.
I love that character.
I didn't have a problem with that guy at all. I thought it was, and at first, because it's Favreau and it's like he's in a different pitch. His voice is in a different pitch.
Yeah, it's slight, right?
I didn't get who it was for about 5 minutes, and I was like, "Oh, it's Favreau."
And are you in agreement with me that the next prequel movie should be about mini Bothans?
Yes. The character that you've created called Mini Bothans. Yes, I agree. I agree with you. Because I listened to the Solo show that you guys did, and there's a lot. I agree with just about everything that you guys said. And I do think there needs to be a Mini Bothans movie now, where like she's the nanny for a young Ben Solo.
I like it.
Somebody's got to clean up that Death Star. I'll tell you that right now. So let's get into it, because our Patreon supporters have told us, actually, they ordered us, because they are the bosses of what we do around here. So we take everything that they say very to a good degree. We just, I don't want to, I almost put too much of a thing on it, but no, we do listen to what you guys say, and when you say we want you to talk about the history of violence, we most certainly will do that. So here is the trailer for A History of Violence from 2005.
One win and run coming right up, boys.
Bye.
Hey, Mr. Stahl.
Hey, Jared.
Morning, Pat. You Tom? Thanks, Tom. Good as ever.
Have a good evening.
Just closing up, fellas. Coffee. I'm sorry, we're closed.
Oh, I know that. I do know that.
Shut up! We don't carry much cash here.
Don't move.
Do it!
They were gonna kill us. You saved our lives.
Hello, my hero.
Tom Stahl is a family man with long-standing ties to this community. Right now, this community is rallying behind him and calling him a hero.
Way to go, Tommy.
Great, more reporters.
You look like reporters.
You're the big hero.
Really don't like to talk about it, sir.
You sure took care of those two bad men, Joey.
My name is Tom. It's Joey.
You tell me.
Sarah? Sarah! My daughter, where is she?
What's going on, Dad? They thought they knew me. Thought I was somebody else.
Nothing to worry about, Mrs. Stahl. I've been watching over her.
I don't know what you want, and I don't really care.
You should care about what I want, because what I want might change your life. But why don't you ask Tom and ask him how come he's so good at killing people?
Tell me the truth. What are you?
All right, that was the trailer for A History of Violence from 2005. Here is the IMDb plotline. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct at everything they say and or do. A mild-mannered man becomes a local hero through an act of violence which sets off repercussions that will shake his family to its very core. It's directed by David Cronenberg, starring Viggo Mortensen, Maria Bello, Ed Harris, William Hurt, and more. As a lot of people I certainly didn't know, and the director himself did not know when he was getting on board with this bad boy, is that A History of Violence is indeed a comic book movie. So you know what that means.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Bruce, what do you got for us this week?
Well, today's movie is an adaptation of a 1997 graphic novel titled A History of Violence by John Wagner and Vince Locke. The comic story concerns a small-town Michigan cafe owner, Tom McKenna, and why they changed it to an Indianan, which my autocorrect changed to Indian, but you know what I mean, Indianan, and why they changed his last name to Stahl, I'll never know. I guess Indiana tested better with focus groups than Michigan. I mean, in the summer, I'm not sure you can tell Indiana and Michigan apart, but it doesn't matter because they filmed this thing in Ontario. But I'm sure Cronenberg has his reasons.
He's Canadian.
If only I could have been. If only I could have been a fly on the wall in the planning sessions. Did you catch that, Adam? I said fly on the wall because Jeff Goldblum. Well, Tom McKenna becomes a local hero after defending his store from an attempted robbery. Despite his efforts to avoid the limelight, Tom's story receives national attention, and he is soon visited by three men who are later revealed to be known associates of the New York City Mafia. You see, New York, not Philadelphia, so it's totally different. Now, John Torino, an aging hitman who lost an eye once, alleges that Tom is actually someone named Joey, who crossed him 20 years earlier. Torino notices that Tom is missing a finger on his left hand and pulls out a pendant containing a severed finger, claiming he took it from Joey during their last encounter. Now, that's a gruesome little detail that would have added some flair to this movie, don't you think? Now, Tom vehemently protests his innocence to everyone, but he is eventually forced to drop his facade when Torino and his accomplices take McKenna's son, Buzz, hostage in order to draw out Tom, who manages to thwart their plan and kill the other two mobsters. Now, Tom admits he really is a gangster named Joey Money, which I believe is a significantly cooler name than Joey Cusack, but I'm not a Hollywood hitmaker like David Cronenberg. Oh, to be a fly on the wall. Now, an important detail in the comic book that the movie left out is that Joey was only a criminal so he could acquire the money that his grandmother, his only living relative, needed to pay for an expensive medical procedure on her heart. That's what you call a sympathetic criminal, folks. But I'm not an L.A. big shot like one David Cronenberg, who directed The Fly, if you didn't know. But Tom is eventually forced to confess all of this to the police, as well as his own family, after DNA analysis reveals that the severed finger Torino keeps in a locket around his neck is, in fact, his. Imagine that. This movie could have had a whole CSI-style procedural montage. Now, fortunately for Tom/Joey, his lawyer arrives and learns that the police failed to Mirandize him, which makes his confession inadmissible in court. Now, that's what I call lawyering. Now, the climax of the comic treads pretty closely to torture porn, with a baseball bat and a chainsaw fight, so I don't mind that being left out of the movie. But in the end, both Tom/Joey walks away triumphantly. Now, A History of Violence was published by Vertigo Comics, but John Wagner has done a lot of work for a United Kingdom company called Rebellion, better known to most as 2000 AD. Now, Wagner wrote what is my favorite 2000 AD comic, and perhaps one of my favorite comics overall, and that's a story called Button Man. Now, do you guys know what the best thing about my prestige format, oversized Button Man trade paperback is?
Hold on, I gotta stop the procedure here for just 2 seconds. Sean, sidebar.
Yes.
Do you notice how Bruce is saying button just like David Chen would? Button. All right, go ahead.
Button Man.
Yeah, it's pronounced button, but okay. I don't know where you're getting
this.
Well,
do you guys know what the best thing about my prestige format, oversized Button Man trade paperback is?
No.
The fact that it was free. It was a gift from 2000 AD graphic novels editor Keith Richardson, a guy who has been way more kind to me than I deserve over the past 5 years or so. But Button Man, a comic I must enunciate carefully because my good friend Marty Merrick told me that my accent makes it sound like I'm saying butt man when I say it too quickly, is a great comic. So that's why I'm giving you the David Chen Button Man.
They put U's in words that don't mean them. So.
Button Man sound too much like Butt Man.
Okay, sure.
But it's
it's a gritty crime drama about a hired killer who grows weary of killing for crime bosses and decides to put them square in his crosshairs. The story starts in the streets of London and makes its way to the U.S., where it reaches an amazing climax in the swamps of the Everglades. Or maybe it's the Louisiana Bayou. I can never tell those two apart. I blame it on Swamp Thing and Man Thing, ruining my geographical knowledge of swamps. But giving his gritty style and hyper-violent stories, one could call John Wagner the British Ed Brubaker. But that would be wrong. You know why?
Because Brubaker's the...
No, because John Wagner's from Pennsylvania.
Oh.
Now, one might ask what a fellow from the good old US of A would do writing comics for a British publisher. Well, the answer to that is simple. It's what all the cool kids do. And I hope to be able to elaborate on why I feel that way soon. So, guys, that's our comic book connection for A History of Violence.
That what you doing there, Bruce? I love it. Love it to death.
Button Man. Button.
Not that.
Oh,
not what I'm talking
about.
Butt
Man.
When somebody dissects these episodes like the Zapruder film, they will think of this moment.
Yes,
like this is when we
I hope
knew.
So.
If you go back, the pieces they all align together, man. So as we said, this is David Cronenberg, and despite what Bruce says of him being a big Hollywood muckety-muck, he is a Canadian and very strong and does not really go outside of Canada much too often to do the film. So
what about The Fly? Was that a Canadian film?
Sure, in some way. It's Cronenberg, man. He doesn't leave Vancouver or wherever the heck. I don't know, man. He just
Jeff Goldblum was in that movie with Charles Bronson where he had a death wish, whatever that's called.
Yes. Very good. What a roundabout way to just throw. It's a real word association with you. It's like Cronenberg, Fly, Jeff Goldblum,
Scanners.
Jeff Goldblum.
Scanners. I like Scanners. That's where the head exploded, right?
It
is.
is.
That Scanners or Videodrome?
That's Scanners.
That's Scanners for sure.
Very good.
The best body horror director of all time, one David Cronenberg. That's why he needs to make the Cyborg movie.
I honestly, I think that's a fairly apt statement, and we'll get into some of that and how this movie could have gone down a bit of that alley, but chose not to. So now, were you guys? I'm sure everybody's probably seen The Fly and stuff. Are you guys Cronenberg fans previous to this, or?
Not a fan, but I there's some of his stuff I like and some that I don't. Like I'm a big, of course, because I grew up with it. I was a huge fan of The Fly with Goldblum. I don't know if we've mentioned that here yet, but Cronenberg directed a movie called The Fly, and I like that. And I liked other movies he'd done as well. But the thing that was a step too far for me was that movie Monkey Shines. I couldn't get through that movie.
For some reason, I like that movie, but I don't think he directed it.
I just wasn't that kid, But
I don't think he directed that.
No, Monkey Shines is what's his? Is that Romero? No, wait a minute. Okay, all right, because I know I had a lighting teacher actually worked on that. Film.
Oh, really?
The monkey was the star of the movie. It's George A. Romero. You're right.
Yeah, I thought so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Sorry about that. But for the most part, he is a very good director. And this was one of the movies that if you were to ask me before I watched this movie today again, if you were to ask me yesterday what is your favorite Cronenberg movie, I would have said A History of Violence.
Yeah, and this definitely starts his period that goes a little bit away from what his traditional what his career path had been previous and everything. So it's him and Vigo's kind of trilogy together of History of Violence, Eastern Promises, and a Dangerous Method, which are all very not traditionally thought of as kind of your regular David Cronenberg fare, if you will.
Yeah.
It's not the same as things like Crash and Naked Lunch and stuff like that. A little bit. That's a little bit out there.
I had totally screwed up some of in my brain some of the things that happened in Eastern Promises. I thought happened in A History of Violence. So it was interesting today. I was like, oh, this is not the same. This is not what I thought.
This is not the one that has the fist fight in the Turkish bath or something like that. Isn't that what Eastern Promises is famous for?
Oh, yes.
It is. And also the kid getting killed in the barber shop.
And everything I learned about Russian tattoos, I learned from Eastern Promises.
Thanks, David.
Which is a movie that's about Russian tattoos, right? Isn't that the basic principle?
More or less.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't think anybody knew how successful. Do you know how successful or big A History of Violence was at all, Bruce?
I think it got some like critical buzz. I think it was like a darling of Cannes, like one of those kind of things, but I don't know how it did at the box office.
Because one of the big things is that David Cronenberg himself, when he signed up to do this, did not know this was a comic book movie and had he's got a lot of bad things to say about comic book movies. So I think had he known initially that this was a comic book film, he probably wouldn't have done it.
And maybe that explains some of the, I don't know, I guess you would just call cosmetic changes. Like there are changes that don't, like, why would you change the guy's name from McKenna to Stahl?
Because you're a hockey fan?
Like that doesn't really have anything at all to do. Like I don't think McKenna is a comic book name, but it's weird. It's like things were changed just to exert your dominance over the source material, which is weird to me.
Well, a part of it, from what I understand, had a little bit to do with the casting itself, because initially a lot of the kind of mob guys were going to be your more traditional Italian mob people. And when they hired people like, like Ed Harris and stuff like that, and William Hurt, they were like, I don't think anybody's going to buy these guys as Italian. So then they changed them over to kind of an Irish sort of thing. And so I think...
So then why do they change the name from McKenna to Stahl? I mean, McKenna sounds more in line with the Irish mob than Stahl.
But he wants you to... Stahl's also the fake name. So they're trying to get you off of that scent.
And McKenna's the fake name.
And that's what he's trying to tell you, is that if he's trying to run away from the Irish mob, why would he name himself McKenna?
Yeah. He'd do something else.
Yeah, because we all know that, when you think, what does your stereotypical Irish person look like? It's Viggo Mortensen.
Well, it's
You're right about that.
It's more the rest of the supporting cast.
The Danish Jim, Viggo Mortensen.
I think it works well enough.
But to me, it's a cosmetic change. Why do you change from Michigan to Indiana?
It's called budget.
That got me.
But budget, they're filming in Ontario, which looks just as much like Michigan as it does like Indiana.
I think it's the same. I think it's the same narrative here. I think it's because he can change it, so he does change it.
Yeah, I think he's trying to exert his dominance over the source material, trying to separate himself from the comic book as much as possible.
I agree with that. Although I got to tell you, just having a different ending to this thing changes everything, and also the reason why he is doing it in the first, why he takes off in the first place. This is, to me, the movie has it all over the book. The reason why he's doing it in the book is not nearly as interesting as why he does it in the movie.
See, I think personally, I think that it ends differently, but it's not a different ending. It's not as spectacular of an ending. It's not as over the top, but it's still basically the same ending. He kills his accomplice and goes on with his life. I mean, that's how it ends in both the comic and the movie. It's just maybe a little bit smaller of an ending than it is in the comic because, come on, we don't need the chainsaw fight,
And here's the thing. I think a lot of that, and again, we'll get into it a little bit later, but I think that some of that not having that kind of over-the-topness of it and everything is also Cronenberg kind of going a little bit against what he normally does. Like I said, this is the start where he kind of did this trilogy of going away from things that he was normally doing, and he would easily be that guy who would have some sort of crazy wild chainsaw fight. I mean, this is the guy who made Videodrome, all right?
But also, though, when you see those gunshots to the face, like people get shot literally between the eyes and they're not dead.
Listen, you can take
that
the boy
is a
off
little
the
bit
farm,
of the fly, like the wounds, the facial wounds from some of these gunshots are sort of reminiscent of Jeff Goldblum peeling his skin off, becoming the Fly. Like there's still some Cronenberg touches. He loves to mutilate a human head, and it happens in this movie.
No, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, there's a few lingering shots where I'm like, well, there you are, Cronenberg. Hello.
Peeking out and just going, hi, everybody. And the thing is that the cuts over in Europe they actually linger on those a little while longer here than they do in the U.S., shock of all shocks. It's usually the opposite.
Yeah, it is usually the opposite. But can we, I don't know, should we talk about Viggo?
Sure.
Like, who was Viggo? Who was Viggo before Lord of the Rings, and who is he now? And who was he when he made this movie? I think he's a guy who's gone full circle. Like, I think Viggo's career now is at almost the same place it was before Lord of the Rings. But this movie was made in what I think before we started recording, Sean called peak Viggo, where he could really exert himself. He was making this. Didn't he make that weird racehorse in the desert movie?
Hidalgo, yes.
Hidalgo.
Yeah, like there was some peak Viggo where he was like, okay, I'm Aragorn. I'm a star. I'm going to make a few things that people are going to watch and say, well, I guess that's not Lord of the Rings. And then I'm going to just sneak away and laugh.
He's one of those guys who's like had that kind of career, like started off doing a lot of TV and little bit parts and things like that. And you're right. Lord of the Rings really is where he got his big giant thing. But I would say the first one that he really popped for me was A Perfect Murder.
Sean, this Hollywood stuff.
I totally forgot he's in that. I love that movie.
Great flick. Michael Douglas, Gwyneth Paltrow, and he plays some crazy artist. And guess what? As his Viggo is oft wont to do, all of that art in that movie, Viggo himself did.
It's his.
Now, is Viggo a handsome man?
He's passable.
He's a rugged individual.
Yeah.
Here's what I think. I think Viggo with long hair, kind of handsome. Viggo with short hair, he's like the high school janitor. Like, it's weird, man. But Viggo with long hair versus Viggo with short hair is astounding.
You know, he is surprisingly in a lot of things before he's ever in Lord of the Rings. Like, he's in Witness.
Down in the
he's
dumps.
in Miami Vice. He's in Young Guns. I mean, he's in a lot of stuff, man.
Now, I could see him in Young Guns. He has short-haired Viggo I could see in Young Guns. Long-haired Viggo I could see in Miami Vice.
He's in Crimson Tide. I mean, he's in a lot of stuff. Daylight, G.I. Jane. Yeah, he's in a lot of stuff before he ever hits Lord of the Rings. But then after that,
and the crazy part is he was the backup Aragorn. He wasn't even the first one. The first one.
Yeah, the first choice was right.
Gilbert Godfrey.
No, the first choice was the guy that played Dorian Gray in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh wow, you're kidding me.
Man, I remember that from our League of Extraordinary Gentlemen review. I deserve some props for that.
Wow, man, that's amazing. Just the shifts of two guys' fortunes. I mean, just completely changing on that one instance. Man, that's crazy.
And Adam, I would almost say, like, you take Viggo Mortensen, you divide it by about 3. So we're talking about like 33% of Viggo Mortensen is Viggo Mortensen.
I'm just thinking like we need to start a game. It's just like every time Bruce pronounces Viggo's name incorrectly in any way, shape, or form, have a shot of
take
juice.
Viggo. You take Viggo. You divide him by 3. You get Bard the Bowman. What's that guy that played Bard the Bowman? Like, he's in a bunch of stuff, but he's only about a third as good in everything as Viggo was as Aragorn.
I could see
Luke Evans, that's his name, Luke Evans.
Luke Evans is another one of those cats.
He was in that Wonder Woman movie we could not review.
He's very you're absolute. Gosh, that's really astute, Bruce. Luke Evans is that kind of guy too. Is like, he's really not bad. He's a good actor. He tends to not be in a lot of great stuff, but the stuff that he's in, he definitely helps bring something to it. But he's not somebody that stands out so much that you're just like, wow, unbelievable kind of thing. He's just a very serviceable kind of guy.
Are we at a good point for me to just run down my pithy comments about the cast?
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, sure.
Well, first off, I want to say that Maria Bello, is it fair to say she's kind of pretty?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Is it also fair to say that only 2 projects she's been in have ever deserved her? Like, she's been way better than everything she's been in, except for maybe this and The Cooler.
I thought you were going to say Coyote Ugly.
Man, she is so far above Coyote Ugly. Also, at 51 years old, Maria Bello gives hope to all of us that are aging. Because, my goodness, she is as beautiful as ever. Man, you want a sexy Aunt May, forget Marissa Tomei. Give me a little Maria Bello in the sequel.
I will not forget Marissa Tomei. How dare you, sir? Maria Bello is a wonderful actress when we could do way worse. But I agree with you. She's a very pretty lady.
Man, but I'm also going to say she's a good actress, but she's done stuff that is just below her talents. Like, I don't know if she was just too pretty to be taken seriously or what it is. But, man, when I saw that she's 51 years old and she is still just like those of us who are aging, Sean, we really can take great solace in knowing that at 51, we have a chance of being as glorious to the world as Maria Bello is currently.
Bruce, you're
I'm aging Maria backwards, so I have that Benjamin Button syndrome. And so weirdly, I look younger now than I did 20 years ago, and that's not even a joke. I really do. However, that does give me hope.
What do you call it when you were born looking like an old man and stay that way? That's kind of what I got.
You're Morgan Freemaning.
Yeah, that's it, man. You could watch Electric Company, or you can watch that stupid movie on the golf course in Florida he made last summer. He's the exact same guy.
He looks exactly the same.
Yeah, I've got Morgan Freeman disease. I was born old and stayed that way.
I'm Morgan Freemaning.
There's some of the, like some things when what was it when John Hurt died? It was just like, Oh, yeah. Like, he's been 70 since, like, 1972.
And hasn't he had cancer since the 60s? How did he do that?
It's just like, how are
Who
you
are
still
you
living?
talking about?
John Hurt.
Oh, I thought you were talking about William Hurt for a minute.
No. There's just... He's still alive.
Because William Hurt's in this movie, so I got very confused.
Yeah, I figured as much.
Okay, but hey, William Hurt, man, is a guy who really got lost in the role, I guess you could say, because based on other William Hurt movies I've seen, he did not look like William Hurt to me.
Well,
no,
what'd you guys think?
He's great in this movie, and it's funny because he kind of picks and chooses what he wants to give a crap about. Like in that terrible Lost in Space movie in the 90s, you can basically see him with the phone in his hand as he's on set. Whereas this movie here, he clearly cared, and he behaves differently. His facial expressions are different. The way he holds himself is different. He really did the actual work in this movie, and it's fun to watch, quite frankly.
You guys may not remember this, but he did get nominated for Best Supporting Actor at the Academy Awards for this movie, this performance.
Not bad for a 10-minute role.
He should. It's basically because of the body of work, though. That's why he got the nom.
It kind of reminds me almost, well, he didn't win. If he had won, I would say it was on par with that chick from Midnight Cowboy that won Best Supporting Actress for a really, really small role. You know who I'm talking about?
When she driving the car that almost hit Dustin Hoffman.
No, it's the aging blonde-haired lady who thinks that John Voight's going to pay her, but John Voight thinks she's going to pay him, and they have that whole round and round.
Yeah. Man, I haven't seen that movie in about 20 years.
Probably one of the funniest things in the history of cinema is when a hooker and a gigolo try to hire each other and don't know who's the customer and who's the payer. It's hilarious. Cinematic perfection.
That's going to be next season's what you call it there, Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Actually, it does sound like an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. William Hurt, we talked about. Ashton Holmes. Do you think somewhere Ashton Holmes is sitting at home on his big screen 4K TV watching Social Network and thinking, that could have been me?
I think he does that with a lot of things, although he's on Arrow.
Oh, boy. Talk about a consolation prize.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that he's busy. He's too busy to think about what could have been, which is good.
But he is so close to Jesse Eisenberg, but not quite.
Right. Well, he's better looking than Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah, but it's always easier to ugly it up than it is to be more handsome. You know this. I mean, the surefire way to get nominated for an Academy Award is to ugly it up. Now, if an ugly person gets really, really handsome, you don't get an award for that because you can't do that. It's a one-way street. You know, the handsome can always ugly it up, but the uglos can't really handsome it up or it looks fake. Like, you remember that movie? Man, I hate to call people out on blast, but this is perhaps an actress who deserves it. But you remember that movie called She-Devil where they tried to convince us that Roseanne Barr got hot?
What? No.
We weren't buying it. We weren't buying it, man.
But wow. Axe to grind on She-Devil.
But the movie with Charlize Theron, Monster, where she uglies it up, she uglied it up really good.
It's just about unrecognizable. So good. That performance.
And like Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder, he uglies it up real good. But you've never seen Jason Alexander as a heartthrob. It just don't go the other direction. It's a one-way street.
Are you starting a petition?
Yeah, I want a petition so that the uglos of the world, we can be handsome in a movie.
I want Clint Howard running at the top of the ticket for every romantic comedy in 2019. Make it happen, people. So this, do you like the opening shot for this thing? How it's all in one? Anybody a fan of that, or was it just?
What do you mean all in one?
It was a good.
You mean
it's a good long shot.
Continuous shot?
Yeah,
a long shot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it opens up almost like it's trying to convince us we're watching Pulp Fiction or something.
Very much.
I don't get it. I don't like the opening a whole lot. I think the opening tips the hand too much personally by showing us this is going to be a gritty crime drama or whatever. I think it would have been better if it opens up with Viggo and family doing some Midwestern boring family stuff and then go straight into the diner scene.
But you got to catch people right away with a movie like this, or you're not going to grab their attention because they're going to be like, I don't care about this. Let's move on.
Yeah, and the big thing,
you know, this is the movie theater. This isn't the TV. You're not, you know, you've already bought the ticket. You're not going to leave before the diner scene. I mean, the diner scene was in all the trailers.
Right, but they know, like, you know, when it comes to smaller movies like this, they understand that more people are going to see this at home than people who go to the movie theater to see it.
And they did, for sure. This movie did not make money.
It did double its budget at the box office,
which means it's just about black.
Oh yeah, because the CGI budget was definitely high on this one.
Prints and advertising. So you got to figure it's got to make at least 2.5 times to even start to break even.
Yeah, it's always the advertising that kills you on your little tiny movie.
Well,
your little tiny movie that's got the biggest star in the world in it at the time, and Ed Harris and William Hurt. Your little movie.
They thought that would sell it, but it not as much as they wanted.
It was a $30 million budget, and they spent almost no money on the actual movie, and they split the $30 million 4 ways between Cronenberg, Mortensen, Hurt, and Harris.
Why not?
Poor Maria Bello didn't even get her share. But Ed Harris, man, Ed Harris is a good bad guy.
Man, he's just good, period.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, though, have you ever loved him as a good guy? I mean, even as Alan Shepard in The Right Stuff, he was kind of a bad guy.
He's always got kind of a D-bag quality about him, but yet you don't dislike him for it. If that makes sense.
I don't know, man.
He's
know.
Great. He's great in Apollo 13. He's great in The Abyss.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a couple of things where you're like, man, I really like Ed Harris.
And as the Man in Black in Westworld, he's still like going strong, man. He's probably the best character on that show.
And
he's totally despicable.
Great in Aronofsky's Mother last year. The guy is just like.
What was he doing in Aronofsky's Mother?
Oh well, it's too much to talk about. But he plays.
Oh, you're talking about a movie. Never mind.
Yeah,
I misunderstood.
Oh, you little so and so. Look at him. He goes over. Sean Keenan's gone for 2 weeks.
Here's another thing about the cold opening, though. I want to go back. Well, okay. I don't think it's a cold opening. The opening, because this doesn't ever have like a big credit scene in a musical montage or something. You know, this isn't Deadpool, but the opening sequence where we have the gangsters, the criminals, these nebulous ne'er-do-wells at the small town motel complaining about the heat and killing the maid and then killing the little girl. The one actor that plays the young criminal. He looks just enough, but not quite like Viggo, that there's a part of me the very first time I saw this so many years ago was wondering, like, are they showing us the young version of Viggo? Because I knew the comic, and this whole thing's not in the comic. And I thought, are they going ahead and spoiling, like, the twist by showing us Viggo when he was a young guy? But they didn't. But he looks enough like the guy that I think you could be forgiven for being mistaken that way. Wouldn't you?
Man, are you face blind or something?
I don't know.
It's called prosopagnosia, and yes.
I don't think they look anything alike, those two guys.
I don't want to.
You know who I think he looks more like is the guy that is in the Terminator movie where he played John Connor in the last one, and he's in Planet one of the Apes movies, like
Sam Worthington or something.
No,
the other guy.
Sam Worthington. Guy. You are face
the
blinded.
guy from Zero Dark 30, maybe.
Yes. Oh,
I think he looks a lot like that guy, especially because it happened. You know, this movie is 13 years old, so.
Now, in all fairness of being face blind, I do watch Westworld, where I'm supposed to believe that the guy who plays Ed Harris as a young man is really Ed Harris, and they look nothing alike. Spoiler for Westworld.
Jason Clarke is his name.
Jason Clarke, thank you.
Yeah.
From Westworld?
No, that's from the other.
The guy who I couldn't remember his name, who's the actor that looks like Greg Burke, the guy from this movie.
And that is a long journey for so little gain.
Oh, you aren't kidding. That's why I'm a little angry as I'm explaining myself.
The funny thing is, though, if you do look at their picture online and stuff, especially kind of in the eyes, I see it.
Yeah,
that's not a crazy thought.
Now, here's my question when we get to the diner scene, because man, there's a lot of stuff that don't really matter before the diner scene. There's a lot of like independent movie setting the scene. We don't got a lot of budget, but we want to be like cool. Like independent movies are not going to be mistaken for, let's just say, the Avengers, okay?
Go on.
But you got like the baseball scene. Let's talk about this baseball scene that I've got so many problems with. First of all, the costume designer is Diane Cronenberg. So she's probably related to the director, right?
Probably.
I don't know if it's a wife or a daughter or a sister, but it's a person who has clearly never been to a baseball game, right?
For sure.
So yeah, some of these people like wearing full on like black jeans to a.
Honestly, not only that, but the casting director is from the Wet Hot American Summer School of Casting, where you have like Paul Rudd as a high school kid. You know what I mean?
I'll be honest with you. That was the biggest thing for me, is that I was looking at him the whole time just going, this kid is way too old. Way too old.
Oh, man. It's like Eddie Furlong and Pecker when we're supposed to believe he's 18 and he's 31. But anyway, so they're playing baseball.
Now, I'm not, hold on. I got 2 seconds. I do want to sit here and tell you that, like, you've named 2 movies within this episode that my lighting director worked on. Was both Pecker and Monkey Shines. This is not even a joke.
What an oeuvre. In fact, you can't even call it an oeuvre when it involves Pecker and Monkey Shines. Then it's just a body of jobs. But anyway,
if you mentioned what you call it, what was the? I'll remember. It's the not Dead Poets Society. What was the? Not Juice, but something that's like Juice. No,
Dead Poets Society is not at all like Juice.
Down?
I'm shutting down.
First of all, Juice and Dead Poets Society. Like, if you're confused about which one of those two, it's
Dead Presidents. I knew the word "dead" was in it.
You know, it's like Boys in the Hood or Oh Captain, My Captain. Anyway, White Squall or Boys in the Hood. I always get those two confused.
They're all close.
Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on and just say that no one involved in the making of this movie has ever played or watched baseball.
Who are his teammates that are allowing him to just get straight bullied in this? Is this like, does everyone in your team hate you?
No, the first off, I'm like, what weird kind of like the kid is talking to his dad in the morning about the big game. And then they go to the big game and they're playing in T-shirts and dress pants.
Well,
and then the guy hits what is clearly a pop-up that's barely going to make it past second base, and he struts like he just hit a home run.
He
and
does.
then the guy.
I was getting a bell ringing in my head, and I figured out why it is that they explain it that it's not a big baseball game, it's gym class.
Exactly, and that's where I'm going with this. But in the morning, he's talking about the big game like it's a game. Then it turns out it's gym class, which even in gym class, we wore shorts. And also, did you ever, either one of you guys, and you know, I know the world is a wide and varied place and people at different schools do things differently, but we never actually played hardball baseball in gym class because you couldn't count on people to bring gloves and stuff to gym. And people could get hurt with an aluminum bat and a baseball. We played wiffle ball in gym class or dodgeball or some weird game like pillow polo or something. We never went out to the field and actually played 9-on-9 baseball.
First let me answer your question, because yes, we never played actual hardball baseball. That's because of like legality issues. But the second thing, now I have a great new euphemism for sex called pillow polo. So thank you for that.
And then they're in the locker room, which, you know, my PE locker rooms were never like in any movie or television show. First off, they seem to have like unlimited amounts of time to get from PE to chemistry or to history or whatever comes after PE. Like, man, people going all the way back to Carrie when they're taking like 45-minute showers that involve throwing tampons. I mean, PE to me was like bell rings, and you go with the half moons under your arms and the big like sweat stain in your polo shirt that you wore to school that day with your Buster Brown loafers that you wore while you played pillow polo to history class. Like, I went to a very different school than movie school.
That locker room is very much from the school of, hey, if we don't light it, they don't see it.
And that is very true. It's the darkest locker room ever.
I put up with all kinds of bullies throughout my academic career, but never once did a bully look like a young Patrick Swayze.
Well, you know, that's the part that Spider-Man, the last Spider-Man Homecoming got right, is that, you know, bullies don't look like the way that this bully looks. Like bullies don't look anything like that guy. that guy's got way too much going on to worry about what the nerdy kid is doing. He's not. He is not. He's not going to concern himself with. Hey, let me make this guy's life miserable because he's too busy.
Now, part of it may be because the time period is accurate, but I'm sure both of you guys saw the It movie last summer.
Yeah,
Stephen King's It. The bullies in that movie were very authentic looking to the bullies I dealt with in school.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Slightly inbred, all kind of weird, kind of goofy, probably picked their nose a lot. And they've been held back at least 3 years. I mean, that was standard bully stuff. They did not look like this guy who turns out is a professional Canadian soccer player, which I didn't know there was professional Canadian soccer, but this actor's actually got a lot going on in life. He doesn't need to pick on poor, not quite Jesse Eisenberg.
I've got to go kick a couple goals today.
He's sad because the hockey players pick on him.
No, he should be, and the hockey players should be, because that's just like, it's like, what are you, it's soccer. Like you too much of a...
We call it grass hockey where I come from.
You can't strap on some skates and, hit somebody like a man? Come on now, grass hockey guy.
You may be shocked to know this. But Chris Elvins, diehard hockey fan.
No, shocking. Utterly shocking.
Yeah, what a surprise.
In 2 weeks, I'm going to be a guest of honor at a Canadian comic book convention. So I got to take the old hockey bat with me up there.
Well, let me help you out here because we're friends. Say that you're the biggest Hartford Whalers fan in the world, and
I can play Brass Bonanza on my harmonica.
Can you really?
No, but I'll learn between now and then.
Man, that's a great idea, because you don't have to know any of the scores, because the Hartford Whalers haven't existed in almost 20 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And everybody who loves hockey loves the old hockey teams. So the Whale, I'm a huge Hartford Whalers fan.
Then just
Atlanta
keep mentioning
Flames.
the 5-hole.
I'm going to go all in on the Atlanta Flames.
No, don't do that.
No. Oh, okay. Anyway, back to the movie. So when we get to the diner, which is supposed to be the cool scene, and I'm pretty sure the first time I watched it, it was the cool scene. But the thing is, the trailers, before you ever saw this movie, you knew what the diner scene was going to be. And I think that was, I don't know, one of those weird things where if the trailers don't let you know about the diner scene, you're not going to go see the movie. But the movie is less because you know about the diner scene. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
It's one of those sad things, but it happens.
Yeah, and watching the diner scene the second time around and in proximity to the other things we viewed, I couldn't help but think, man, this is a lot more like Ginger Dead Man than I remembered.
Okay, come on now. Listen, there's a lot of things that you can say on this podcast, and we won't raise an eyebrow, but sometimes you go too far, Bruce Leslie.
I would have loved it if the old guy had been Gary Busey, not Nick Busey, not Jake Busey. The old Busey, Gary Busey.
Hey, I'm Gary.
If Gary Busey had been the old guy who doesn't really show up after the diner scene, it would have just been a nice touch. But I couldn't help but think that this diner scene has a little bit in common with Ginger Dead Man.
Yeah, in as much as they're in diners, sure.
And this movie would have been pretty cool if the third act featured a talking gingerbread man.
It also, no one would have seen it coming, so at least it would have been very, very surprising.
That's true. If you didn't put that in the trailer, boy, oh boy, would there be people asking for their money back.
Imagine he goes into the mansion in Philadelphia, and there's the big chair, and instead of William Hurt, it rolls around, and it's a gingerbread man with Gary Busey's voice.
And it's a giant cookie with Gary. What kind of movie are we writing?
You know, I think if I can speak on a generality thing, I know you're going blow by blow on this, Bruce, but I'm gonna beat myself up if I don't remember this, so I've got to spit this out now. One of the things that I did not catch the first time I saw it, because I was just younger, is that just how much they beat you over the head with the morality play of this movie, where, violence begets violence, and they just pound it into you just over and over and over again, to the point where at one point I was saying to myself, okay, we get it. Thank you.
Now, I'm going to answer a question that I asked earlier and didn't think about the answer until just now when you talked about the morality play. But when I had seen this movie, what is it, 2005? Yeah, 2005, 2006. Not that long.
Oh, it is 5. Sorry.
Not that long after The Unforgiven. And The Unforgiven had already told me the story of the cold-blooded killer who becomes a farmer and gets dragged back into killing. And Clint Eastwood's character, his last name is Money. And this character is supposed to be Joey Money based on the comics. And because of the already existing similarities with The Unforgiven, which is kind of an archetypal story, I guess you could say. The whole guy, each time I get out, they pull me back in kind of story going back to The Godfather. But I can maybe see why they didn't want to have that parallel with Joey Money being similar to William Money. So they changed it to Joey Cusack, which suddenly makes me think he should be holding up a boombox playing Peter Gabriel.
And one of the big things is at that time, too.
But the morality tale wasn't wasted on me because I thought of The Unforgiven the whole time I'm watching this, but I also knew where it was going because I knew the comic from about the time of Unforgiven. The comic was written in the 90s, late 90s.
But they were also going to be doing at that time an Eddie Money biography, and they didn't want to have that be in the market at the same time, so they were like, yeah, let's just change the name.
And what was the name of that Eddie Money biography?
Mo Money, Mo Problems.
two tickets to paradise, of course.
Exactly, man.
But no, look, the scene is good. Now, one thing that I will say in the alternate, semi-alternate, European versions and stuff, that killing in the diner was actually a little bit longer. Viggo shot more into the to the other guy's chest, and I think he did 2 shots into the dude's head, if memory serves. And
I think it needed. I think that the European cut's probably preferred by me because it almost needs just a little bit of something that would be perfected later with another one of these stories, which is the Jason Bourne stories. Which, in a weird way, the Jason Bourne books are way older than this comic or this movie, but the movies that brought it to the forefront. But it also almost needed that going into autopilot and showing him being not just able to kill these guys, but just
shockingly
good at it. Which I think he was just minimally good at it.
What's bothersome?
I thought that they did a good job with that, actually, where he almost becomes a zombie when that stuff starts happening around him.
Yeah, that's that Jason Bourne effect.
But that's more the second time around. The first one, because it's so laid back and everything. But when Aaron Harris shows up at his house, he does have the line, which in the American cut doesn't make as much sense as it would in the European cut. When he goes, "I wonder why you kill so good," which seeing what we saw in the American cut, which is I think 1, maybe 2 shots, and then 1 shot to the head and stuff. It looks like, he just happened to be right place, right time, and just happened to thwart this crime. Not so much that he was like, whoa, that Jason Bourne moment when the first time he gets, on the bench there and everything, and then just flatlines the guy.
It's
then you're like, whoa,
he's
what's
so
going
good,
on?
he could make himself look like he's not good.
I guess, but I just thought it was like, I wish it were a little bit more over the top, so then that line kind of makes sense a little bit more. And
also, he really should be. I
wow,
wonder how you kill
guy?
So well.
Yeah.
It's an adverb. It's not an adjective.
Yeah. What can you say? The the phonics lessons over there at the Mobster Academy, not as good as you think.
Superman does good. You do well.
The one thing I remember about this movie, it really stuck out in my mind. And it also stuck out in the comments that the general public made about this movie, and something different. The comics was very violent, but this movie did not shy away from, let's just say, sensuality, because there's some borderline, depending on which group of reviewers you get. If this is an independent film, like a truly independent film, a Miramax film, it's probably getting an NC-17 for 2 scenes.
And here's the thing, because Cronenberg's never shied away from sexuality and stuff in his films, especially a couple specific ones. So it's not that's another one where it's just like, oh, this is a Cronenberg flick outside of the crazy body horror stuff. This is another one that you just go like, oh yeah, this guy also does that kind of stuff kind of a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, that was a big takeaway for me when I saw this movie, is it was not something I necessarily expected to see in a somewhat mainstream comic book kind of movie. It gets realistic. I don't want to say graphic. I just want to say real. And then when I'm talking about when she's dressed as the cheerleader and they're just being real about stuff. But then on the stairwell, there's the big question of consent.
Here's the thing, and I rewatched this thinking about this question because somebody had brought it up. And I was thinking about this, and there's a lot of stuff that's going on because at that point she has realized that, he's copped to the fact that he is Joey from the past, right? And he had a completely different past before he met her, and everything has changed at that point. While she's going up, here's the thing: he does start off with an assault. There's no doubt about that because he's grabbing her, he's angry, he doesn't know how to stop her from leaving, essentially. And the two, I think this is my read. You guys tell me if you read it differently. With the two of them, it's a complicated sort of thing, and he's kind of mad at her, but at the same time, she's really the only thing that he's kind of got right now, and the same thing goes for her. She really doesn't know anything else outside of this. And while it starts bad, she does help initiate things quite a bit here, and by the end of it, it's like they came almost to the realization that while this is there, this is not going to help what's going on right now. And
it goes back to that. It goes back to that hideous 1950s movie trope where the woman slaps you, you pull her in close, you kiss her, she fights at first, and then she gives in. Yeah. That was a horrible thing to put in like every movie made for 25 years.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of falls into that same category. And it's just a weird thing to put into it. And the most disturbing thing about it is just how much Viggo has an old man butt. Because, man, they don't shy away. And I don't think that's a stunt butt. I mean, he's got an old man butt. And we got to look at that.
And we got to look at that, Bruce says. It's funny, while they were shooting that scene and everything, as you might imagine, doing the do on a staircase there, probably not the most comfortable of things, especially when it's not carpeted. Cronenberg asked for some stunt mats, and the stunt man just laughed his head off and was like, "This is the first time I've ever heard someone asking for mats for a sex scene." And they didn't use them any, and they actually said in the scene that you later see of Maria Bella's back and everything, and you see some of the bruises and stuff, they actually had to cover up more of actual bruises due to that scene. So
wow.
And this might be controversial, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Tommy Wiseau, better butt than Viggo.
You heard it here first, folks.
I said to Lindsay today as we were watching this, and that scene goes down the scene on the stairwell, and I said, I was like, man, I'm very glad I was not on set that day. That would have been a very depressing day to be on set.
Yeah.
You do not I've been on plenty of closed sets, and they're never fun, but that one specifically, there's no way that was a fun day at work. There's no way.
Oh, man. I picture it like I'm the guy who needs to go to the bathroom really bad. I'm just running through random doorways, and I go into the middle of this scene when I got to pee, and I don't know what to do.
Sorry.
But Maria Bello, I mean, even after it's all over, she just sells the emptiness. Yeah. I mean, emptiness, the emotional emptiness of this scene. And she sells it so well after it's over with. And, Viggo's lying there rolling around on the stairs, and the way she just walks away with the disgust on her face. She does a great job of this, but the scene is one that drew a lot of commentary, and I think it's deserved. Yeah. And I also think that I don't necessarily believe that Cronenberg wanted to make anything about this glamorous. I don't think that we're necessarily supposed to think that what we see here is okay, which is just my way of saying, yeah, what happened is wrong, and it's okay. We also see murders happen, and those are wrong. Here's the idea that this is wrong.
I think you're correct. I think that the reason for this scene is not to titillate as this type of scene normally would be intended to do. I don't think that's the function of this scene at all.
I think that's why we get the old man butt instead of that awesome Maria Bello butt.
Exactly.
I think he wants it to be unpleasant to watch, because very few people probably enjoy Viggo's butt flexing back and forth like that.
You know what? It sounds like you got a one-track mind here, Bruce. I'm really starting to question some things.
I don't like that butt of his.
No kidding. Or maybe thou dost protest too much. I don't know. Who's to say? So
would it have hurt them to spend $50 on a stunt butt?
Viggo don't do no stunt butt, man. Viggo's shown his butt in a lot of films now that I'm really thinking about it. And more when he with Eastern Promises, of course.
Yeah.
When that went down, we all got a little bit more Viggo than we bargained for at that point in time. So obviously he kills Ed Harris's character. Goes off and then realizes, it's all coming to roost.
He's got to nip it in the bud, to quote a man from Mayberry, known as Barney Fife. You got to nip it in the bud.
You got to do it. We talked about him a little bit earlier, and I think we talked about him for about as long as he was in the film. John Hurt, there for a hot second. I love the
William Hurt.
I got John Hurt in mind now. William Hurt with his awesome beard and everything, calling everybody Broham like you did back in 2005. No, you didn't. You did that maybe 1999, and for some reason David Cronenberg, I guess, didn't get to Canada until around 2004 or something, and then he's just like, "Ooh, we're throwing that in."
But it is so weird. It's like they said, here, we're gonna give you a 3-day weekend to spend with the lead singer of Limp Bizkit. We want you to act like him as a gangster.
No, first of all, that's
the goatee, man. Just the broham, everything about it. It's a good performance.
It's really good. He is and he's there for a hot second, but again, the shot, just being able to kill everybody and doing it just so matter-of-factly, and that there's not a big lead up to his death. It's very boop and you're gone.
Yeah, It's a simple story, man. He goes and takes care of business and wants to get back to that life as a farmer.
And I love the kid just goes, it was so much I had this reaction when the kid just goes, when the kid finds out that Dad's not who he said he was. He's like, "What do I call you now? Dad?" You idiot! Of I've never if I knew, I understand her position. That's a little bit different. But the kid, it's save for the name, your dad has been your dad for your entire life. It's not like you realize he's not your dad. He is your biological father. Has always been. To me, that's that. If I woke up tomorrow and my dad was just like, "Hey, my name's actually John, and I've lived a different life," I'm like, "Well, you've been my dad for many years, so
it's going to be real uncomfortable. It's going to be real uncomfortable when my kids find out my name's not really Bruce. So I'm not looking forward to that."
Which reminds me, I was gonna come to a thing here because the character goes into the. If you will, a witness protection type of thing, hideout, if you will. Sean, if you were going into the witness protection program, what name would you choose for yourself? You could be a surname or whatever you have.
The more boring, the better, because you do not want to be found ever. And so, if you can give yourself the most bland name in the world, that's what I would name myself.
So,
and what is that?
Something as simple as John Smith. I would give myself something very, very simple.
I'm a McGillicuddy kind of guy. I don't know why.
I've always wanted to be a Basil Wellington.
That's great. Basil, all the Basils there are in the Virginia area, tri-state area.
Yeah, Basil Wellington. I'm royalty if you trace me back far enough.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, Basil.
Pardon me. Basil can't be bothered today.
You put that name on a job application, you're at least getting a preliminary interview.
Yeah, they're like, you're not wrong. They're like, we got to bring this cat in. What is this? And then you walk in, and they're just like, bummer.
I'd wear a bow tie.
And then you speak, and they're like, rats. Well,
I'd wear a bow tie, an umbrella, one of those little sweater vests. I could be a good Basil Wellington.
It also sounds like you could be a good penguin.
Top hat, tails.
This bird's gonna fly. And
every one of them has a motto.
So stupid. And of course, we go off into the sunset, and we don't know what's gonna happen after this. But there you go. Well, now before we get anything else, we want to touch on. Sounds good. All right, so we do need to come to the most important part of this program: is how this movie relates to one Sylvester Stallone.
Well, thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Mm-hmm.
John Wagner wrote the graphic novel, which was used as the source material for A History of Violence. John Wagner is also credited as the writer-creator for characters in the movie Judge Dredd, starring a man who had better thank Italian Jesus that cell phone cameras and the internet didn't exist 30 years ago.
Amen.
Sylvester Stallone. But the thing that gets my level 2 nerd blood racing is that John Wagner is the writer for one of my favorite video games of all time, Shadows of the Empire for the Nintendo 64. And while the game has aged horribly, at the time there weren't any prequels yet, and we hoped there might be more Star Wars, but it was just some sort of crazy dream. And Nintendo 64 Shadows of the Empire scratched that Star Wars itch. It didn't matter that you played the character Dash Rendar, a bounty hunter that wore a fishnet shirt under a purple flak vest. It didn't matter that Chewbacca is the most ridiculous disguised character of all time. We still know it's Chewbacca, everybody. It doesn't matter that the name of Dash Rendar's ship was called the Outrider, and it looked like a smaller version of the Millennium Falcon and was just as fast as the Falcon, as Dash Rendar claimed, because this was 1996, and that game was still awesome, and Star Wars was dead, dude. At the beginning of the Still-On Connection, you might have heard me call myself a level 2 nerd. That's because I have come up with a theory where there are actually 5 levels of nerddom. So gather around, kids, grab yourself a seat and a sandwich, because I'm going to take you on the journey of a nerd mind. Now, level 1. People who enjoy some level of nerdiness. These people don't watch all the movies, don't read any books, aren't into video games, but they love the hell out of Deadpool and Logan. And while some of the higher level nerds make fun of these people, we need those people to shut their idiot mouths, because the people who only see Deadpool occasionally and Logan are the same people who make Infinity War reach $1 billion plus, ensuring that there will in fact be more Marvel movies. Then you got level 2, people like myself. I like what I like, but you're never going to see me arguing online with some dude who thinks Solo and The Last Jedi are destroying the Star Wars universe. I love Star Wars because I remember when there weren't any, and so I like Solo, but I don't love it. Bruce was right. Han Solo is my favorite character of all time, and even though the kid who plays Solo does a good job, he is never going to be Harrison Ford, who from 1976 to 1986 was the coolest human being on the planet. Now, that's some level 2 nerdiness right there. And I can tell you almost anything there is to know about the Star Wars universe, while I know almost nothing about modern video games or manga or even Star Trek for that matter. Then you got your level 3 nerd, which is more like an Adam. Adam will argue with you over DC versus Marvel, even though he totally prefers Marvel. And he knows a lot. He knows a little about a lot and owns many hard-to-find nerdy T-shirts. The money he makes goes to nerdy things, and what he looks most forward to are nerdy pursuits, like sci-fi conventions and ultimate director's cuts of movies most people have never heard of. Then you got level 4, and that's Bruce. He's a human thesaurus for some comic books. Like, for instance, Bruce, I hate to put you on the spot, but how many Blue Beetles have there been?
Man, there have been. Do I have to run through them all? There's Dan Garrett, there's Ted Cord, there's Jaime Reyes. I feel like there was one before Dan Garrett, so I'm going to say 4.
See? Level 4. Bruce is level 4. Bruce is everything level 3 nerds have, but he's also made a point to get to know some of his favorite creators. He's trying to break into an industry where he's on the raggedy edge of turning his love into a job, which some people will tell you is a great idea. But I think that the second that you do that, you need to find something else that makes you happy. Because if you don't, that's how we get things like extreme ironing and animal pornography, because certain people don't know how to have fun. And then finally, we're at level 5, the last of the levels, the dark side of nerddom. The people who walk up to Rob Liefeld at a convention with the book called How to Draw Comics and tell him, I bought this for you because I thought that you needed it. Look, now we all know that Rob Liefeld has problems with anatomy and backgrounds and machines and shading and sequential art and continuity, but don't be the prick that has to tell him how bad he is. That is not your job, nerd. Either buy his stuff or don't buy this stuff. But don't be the emotionally stunted person who says, the Transformers movies have ruined my childhood. Because if the best part of your childhood is a poorly drawn cartoon about good alien robots fighting bad alien robots, then maybe you should be blaming your parents and not Michael Bay, who, make no mistake about it, sucks. But he didn't ruin your childhood. You did, you level 5 sending horrible comments to the Asian lady from The Last Jedi nerd. And there you have it, HMPers. This week's Stallone connection is none other than John Wagner. Now, levels 3 and 4, let's review A History of Violence so I can start yelling at today's youth about how tough nerds used to have it.
That's true. That's like that. Honestly, that could be a book. It's like,
hey, that movie, Revenge of the Nerds, totally true.
All right. Well, let's get down to it here at Hero Movie Podcast. We have our own patented Robin rating system. No stars, no letters or anything. And if you want to know what's in that Robin rating system, why don't you head on down to Facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast and give a like to that page. Check out the rating system. See what it's like. See if you might become a fan of that. And, of course, like us there while you're at it, man. Bruce, where does A History of Violence fall on the Robin rating system for you, sir?
Good movie, man. It's a good movie. So different from other comic book movies that I don't really... It's weird to think of it on the Robin scale because it just seems more like I should be comparing it to non-comic book movies more than comic book movies. One big
feel that same way.
One big thing going for it that I didn't remember until I rewatched it, but you do get to see the Tropic of Capricorn from Maria Bello, if you know what I'm talking about. So I did not know that was in here. So that gets it to Tim Drake automatically. Boom, Tim Drake.
Tim Drake it is. Sean.
If you were to ask me yesterday what I thought I would rate this movie, I would have told you a Tim Drake. However, having seen it today, I've got to say it's a Damian Wayne for me. It's aged a bit. It's slower than I remember. It is a bit too theatrical for a movie. But I still like it. There's still a lot to recommend this movie, Maria Bello being one of them. But, Viggo Mortensen's great in it. Some of the performances are great. The Viggo Mortensen's kid in this movie is a little Luke Skywalker-y for episode 4, but he's, I got to give it a Damian Wayne.
Very good. I'm going Tim Drake as well. I think this is really... It was pretty darn good, and I actually had the opposite feeling. I was like, "Wow, this thing really kind of booked along for me." It's only about an hour and a half, and to me, it just kind of it felt like while you're right, it is kind of like slower plotting as far as that goes. At least time wise, it seemed to fly by for me. When some of the things we watch, holy cow! I'll tell you that it seems like 3 weeks to watch a single hour and a half episode of some DC animated nonsense. But yeah, I like this well enough. I think it holds up pretty well. It's not perfect. There are some definite problems, and I do wish it was going to go into a little bit more of a Cronenberg-y sort of area. And one of the things I was going to mention, I'll mention it now real quick, is that there was a scene in here that I thought was in this movie because I had read a comment on it, speaking of nerd stuff. I was waiting for this scene, and the credits roll, and I'm like, that scene never happened. What gives? Well, there was a scene initially where they were going to do a dream sequence kind of thing, right? Where Ed Harris's character is still in the diner and everything, and Viggo said, "Hey, why don't we have him pull a gun out of his chest?" And of course, Cronenberg was like, "Well, that's a little bit too much, too little referential to my own work," which most certainly was. And they decided not to do it. But I had convinced myself in my head that I saw that scene over the years, and it's not in there. So, but it made me wish it was, and I wish this movie was a little bit more Cronenberg for its own sake. But overall, I still enjoyed it. I still think it's pretty good. Well worth going back and taking a look at if you dug it back then. All right, that is it, everybody. First of all, thank you, everybody that gave us this episode to watch over at patreon.com/HMP. You guys were generous to us for a change, which was lovely. Sometimes they're like, hey, let's just watch the worst one we can find. And you guys picked a good one, so good on you. And if you would like to vote on that, head on over to patreon.com/HMP, and you'll be able to vote on the next one. And, of course, get pre-shows, post-shows, all that good stuff. Patreon.com/HMP. Next week, holy cow, guys, can you believe we are actually getting an Incredibles 2 film?
Yay.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what Bruce has to say about that.
He sounds over-enthused, I would say, at this point. But we'll be checking that out, everybody. So that's it. In the meantime, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
Hey, I'm hard at work on a Gorilla Grodd episode of Heroes and Villains. I thought, what better way to follow up Detective Chimp than with Gorilla Grodd. And just listening to Sean's little discussion of level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 nerds, I thought, I wonder if people would be interested in like 15 minutes. It'd just be a quick little short podcast, 15 minutes every once in a while, just like Bruce's soapbox. I'm curious if people would be interested in that because, man, I think I've got some stuff to say.
A Bruce's soapbox, if you will. I like.
Yeah,
that.
man.
I would be totally interested in that.
Because, there's the kind of nerd like me that calls episode 4 Star Wars because I grew up calling it Star Wars. And if somebody calls it A New Hope, that's fine. I know what they're talking about. But then there's the kind of guy who makes a big demonstration about how he refuses to call it A New Hope and he insists on calling it Star Wars. I'm not that kind of guy. And I think I could talk for about 10 minutes on that.
That's good. I like that idea. I would love to hear that. I would love to add into it because I have a lot of things to say about this community now.
Awesome.
If you would like to see that, let us know, man. And you can always do that here.
And also, I'm hoping that one of these days I get the green light to explain why perhaps I could call Jonathan Wagner one of my peers. But that's for another day.
It is. It's for another day. Dropping the breadcrumbs over here. Keenan?
You can find me at Twitter at Hero Movie Sean. You can find me at Dog Eat Pod. And that's about it. Thank you.
And, of course, over at the Film Find, thefilmfind.com, tons of new releases and stuff. A little bit behind on recording an episode, but I have been watching. We've got stuff. Fear you not, you'll get one in the next 2 days. And some bonus episodes for the people that are over on the Film Find Patreon, because we like to give, and we give, and we give. So that's what we do here. And we'd like to give you all a giant thank you for downloading this episode, sharing it, telling a friend and stuff, because I know you're a nerd. Nerds have friends. They gather with other nerds. Tell your nerdy friends about this show. Chances are they're probably going to like it. So that is it, everybody. Join us next week for Incredibles 2. For Sean Keenan, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie. Goodbye, Commodore.
I've got